All right, Emory. I stayed up all night, 2 hours, doing a mock draft for day 2. I know it was a little nuts. I was a little on edge. I was a little frazzled. So these might not all make sense. But this was what came to my mind off the top. So, Emory, I'm going to go through. I'm just going to read it, going to give a brief explanation. You want to talk about it, you stop me, we talk about it. You don't want to talk about it, you say pass, we'll go on to the next one, all right? We're going to do that. We're going to go through all 32 picks of day 2. You ready here?
Yep, let's go. I got my whammy button. Let's go. That's before
all right,
time, Mike.
Cleveland Browns. That was for time, but I big bucks, no whammies. We're going to have big bucks here for the Cleveland Browns, who are getting Mike Green, the Marshall edge rusher, right off the top, a guy to pair across from Myles Garrett. And my thinking here, obviously, is Shedeur Sanders still on the board. My thought was if they didn't want him at 5, I think they might just not want him in this draft class. They might just not be going him because they have picks 33 and 36 here. And if Mike Green, who is a top 10 player on a lot of boards, top 10 player on my board, still on here, I think they pull the trigger. I
will say this right quick, Mike. How does he fit in with the Joe Tryon-Shoyinka? Obviously, we know Myles Garrett is out there. Isaiah is also out there. So there's a bunch of edge rushers, or is this just best player available?
It's just a best player available sort of thing. It's just adding and making that defensive line a dominant unit. Where Jim Schwartz, you got a guy who can really get up the football field and attack. Those other guys more power ends. Tryon-Shoyinka, Isaiah McGuire, he more of the undersized speed rusher.
Proceed.
All right, number 34, Houston Texans on the clock. This was obviously them trading back from 25. I had them going Carson Schlesinger, the UCLA linebacker. Obviously, Christian Harris, the third rounder a couple years ago. They're okay at linebacker. I think this is a guy that can be the Fred Warner of this Houston Texans defense for DeMeco Ryans, really put them over the edge to that elite tier of NFL defenses.
I love this, man. This is my number 1 inside linebacker because of those reasons. And I like that you talked about this guy can be a difference maker. The game I watched live was that Friday night game against Iowa where he just was all over the field in that ugly number and those sweet throwback uniforms. It was perfect. So this was the best linebacker. I'm glad you got him here going to Houston.
Let's go. All right, I do love that fit for the Houston Texans. Number 35, Tennessee Titans on the clock. I had them going Luther Burden, the Missouri wide receiver, a guy who everyone loved heading into this season. Disappointing year, didn't even crack 700 yards through the air this season, but obviously a former 5-star, uber talented. And after he didn't get picked on night 1, guy was in the facility at Missouri working out after the draft. Got a chip on his shoulder from not being a first-rounder.
And you know who probably was throwing him the football? America's quarterback, Brady Cook. So I like the fact that he's out there battling with his other guy. But I do feel like this is a good fit because you have to stockpile weapons around your future franchise quarterback in Cam Ward. Get him one of the best receivers. We know what he stood coming into this football season. He was right up there with Travis Hunter in the eyes of these NFL scouts. So this is a fantastic pick for Tennessee.
Yeah, the pairing of those two guys, I mean, if Burns got a chip on his shoulder and obviously Cam Ward's the guy who gets the most out of his wide receivers, a true alpha leader there, that's a great combination, in my opinion. All right, back on the clock here. Cleveland Browns, their second pick of the second round. This one came from the Jaguars in that trade. I'm going Will Johnson, the Michigan corner. I cannot for the life of me, outside of big medical red flags, know why he's still on the board here. His tape wasn't as good this past fall, and he obviously had the turf toe and didn't run a 40 pre-draft. But watch his sophomore tape. Watch him against Marvin Harrison Jr. Watch him against Rome Odunze. Watch him against the Alabama duo that they had last year. The guy was the most crucial player, in my opinion, for Michigan on that national championship run. Adding him to the Browns, even if it's not a need, is like, you could have had Travis Hunter to play both ways. Well, now you just got one guy to play one way who could do it at a really high level.
Mike, you tripped me out. It's like, outside of him not having ankles and knees, how could you can't you buried the lead there, Mike? But I will say this: we saw this before when we were talking about Tajay Spears. This man had no ACL, and that's why he dropped out of potentially a first round or high second round pick. And we've seen him kind of just continue to blossom. He had a great rookie season. So now with Will Johnson, this is a good pick too, because at the end of the day, if he plays outside of what people expect him to play, I know they worry about the degenerative knee or whatnot, but if he's proven to play well and it is not an issue, I mean, this is a steal for them. I love how you double down on defense. I probably would have doubled down on offense, maybe going running back and receiver, but I can't be mad at you double down on a guy that can take the ball away and a guy that can get to the quarterback. That's two elite traits right there, and you got two of those guys best at the positions in the NFL. You're on a roll here, Mike.
Yeah, I mean, when the Browns, like 2 years ago, that was when their defense was really humming. That's kind of how they made the playoff run. It was the defense falling off that really was the big difference a year ago. All right, 37, Las Vegas Raiders on the clock. Here's where it happens. Shedeur Sanders comes off the board to the Raiders. A lot of people thought they could go at 6 before the Geno Smith trade, and obviously they still do have Geno Smith under contract. They signed him to a little bit of an extension there, but he's in his mid-30s. So a forward-thinking pick for the Raiders. He's your quarterback one. What do you think about this one?
It's funny because this is where we kind of thought was going to be the place before the season started because of the whole Tom Brady thing, right? And now he ends up here in Vegas. Aesthetically, it's going to be awesome because he's going to look smooth in that silver and black. But just turns is when he gets on the field, he's going to do what Shedeur Sanders does. And I know a lot of people comped him to Geno Smith, so it does make sense. But I just like the fact that he's on a team. And we know once you get on the field, the football takes over more so than narrative, and he'll play up to that par regardless whenever that is. He's a young guy, maybe year 1, maybe year 5. But whenever he gets on the field, Shedeur Sanders will be Shedeur Sanders.
All right, number 38, New England Patriots. I have them going Iowa State wide receiver Jaden Higgins. To me, they obviously got the left tackle in the first round, but wide receiver was in play at number 4 too with how big their need was. They just didn't see the value there compared to left tackle. So this guy, big-bodied, contested catch, possession type of wide receiver, but I think a lot of people were surprised by the 4.57. He can kind of go too. All
right, let me ask you this. Where was the disconnect for you in terms of choosing between him or Noel, his teammate, and where did you go and decide on, okay, this is why I'm rolling with Higgins?
It was the Drake May factor. I think Drake May needs a little bit bigger of a catch radius guy. He's not a pure accuracy sort of quarterback. He gives guys chances in contested situations. If that's what you have at quarterback, I'm going to lean towards the guy who can make those contested catches more and can make those back shoulder catches more, whereas Noel is just kind of a pure go guy. He doesn't have a big catch radius, but he can get open.
And to your point, Higgins also can play inside a little bit. I like to call it that inside F receiver, that tight, nasty split. So he's able to help out and aid the run game, which we know they have to do a better job of as well. So that's a good, savvy pick.
All right, on to 39, Chicago Bears here. This is the one they got from the Carolina Panthers. Still the Bryce Young trade paying off for them. I'm going to go Travion Henderson, the Ohio State wide receiver. It's obviously been rumored that Eric Bieniemy, Bears running backs coach, loves this guy. Thought he could have been a first-rounder, falls here at 39, and becomes the Jahmyr Gibbs for Ben Johnson's offense.
This is why I love this pick, Mike, is because he is actually the Jahmyr Gibbs type. And I know a lot of folks were talking about the Ashton Genty, but this is more Ben Johnson-like than what people were led on to believe. And what gets him on the field early, pass pro. He is excellent, might be the best in the class in pass protection. I thought this year he kind of tied all three things together from a vision, from a lateral quickness and agility, and we know he has a home run hitting speed. But, man, his pass pro would get him on the field early. They got two shifty guys in Chicago.
All right, number 40, New Orleans Saints. I have them going Texas A&M defensive end Nick Scorton, second youngest player in the draft class, and they're obviously moving to a 3-4 this year, so maybe the big monsters, the big long guys are kind of out, but he bridges the gap because he's a big guy, but he was at his best at Purdue in a two-point stance, playing that stand-up outside linebacker role for them, so he goes to a place where he gets to play that, but also kind of fits the trends towards the guys that the Saints have loved historically.
Exactly, because this is someone that gets underneath your pads and is able to walk you back into the pocket. I love the quiet confidence that you have in evil Patrick Mahomes, Spencer Rattler, that I have as well. So therefore, you get someone on defense that can help you out and also keeps the youth movement going while still being able to win games, because the Saints have gotten older in certain spots. Nick Scorton gives them someone they can count on that's consistent, that can play with his hand up or off the ground, in my opinion.
We're on the same page about the Saints quarterback situation. Rattler, just turn the keys over. Let him go. Let him have a chance, right? He's shown enough, in my opinion, to just get that chance. And if it doesn't work out, heck, your roster's not good enough anyways. It's not like you're in this window. Doesn't work out, you'll be in next year's quarterback class. All right, 41, Chicago Bears. I'm going Nick Emmanwori, the South Carolina safety. Obviously, not a lot of needs on this Bears roster after adding what they've added already so far in Travion Henderson, who I just gave them Colson Loveland in the first round. They're kind of full up, so why not go a little forward thinking? Kevin Byard, this is probably his last year. And Emmanwori, if you draft him, he may even take his job there, truthfully, early on. And a guy who a lot of people has first-round talent. I had him in my top 32. Getting him here at 41 would be a boon for the Bears.
True joker that can be moved around the defense, gives you a wild card on defense this season.
I love it. New York Jets. Last one here before we kick to a break. There's a lot of talent here at the top of the second round. I think a lot of teams are going to be very happy. The teams with 2 picks here, Bears, Browns, they're in the driver's seat. But the Jets at 42, I have them going Trey Amos. Obviously lost DJ Reed this offseason. He's a long corner. That gives you 2 very long corners to run press man in Aaron Glenn's defense. I think he'd be an Aaron Glenn type corner.
Trey Amos started at the University of Louisiana, which is why I'm wearing the pepper here on my lapel. And I wore green because I knew you was going to probably put him with the Jets. So it was all show synergy here, Mike. And here's someone that got better every stop. Like, maybe I got to start tossing my weight around with this NIL stuff, and kept him in Lafayette, Louisiana. But he went to Alabama and got better from Bama to Ole Miss. And I thought that was what really changed his trajectory in terms of his pro prospects, because it didn't look as good in Alabama that it did in Oxford. Good pick here for the Jets.
All right, those are the first 10 picks of the first round. Mike Green to the Browns, Carson Schlesinger to the Texans, Luther Burden to the Titans, Will Johnson to the Browns, Shadur Sanders to the Raiders, Jaden Higgins to the Pats, Travion Henderson to the Bears, Nick Scourton to the Saints, Nick Emmanwori to the Bears, and then Trey Amos to the Jets. We're going to have picks 43 through 53 coming up right after this. '43 overall, San Francisco 49ers on the clock. I have them going Toledo defensive tackle Darius Alexander, another top 50 pick for the Rockets. Defensive tackle, highly athletic, highly productive, had a great Senior Bowl, and for the 49ers, just adding defensive line talent. He did in the first round with Michael Williams. This guy a little older, but maybe a little bit more NFL ready for them.
Most Toledo guys are. We've seen this before. Quinyon Mitchell, we saw it well before that with other Toledo Rocket players that have come in and done well. And I think this is where San Francisco probably should have gone earlier in terms of the first round, maybe offensive line. But I think building inside out was a smart play here. That's why I love the Alexander pick.
All right, next up, number 44, Dallas Cowboys on the clock. I have them going Kyle Williams, the Washington wide receiver. They obviously went offensive line in the first round with Tyler Booker. Still have that desperate need for a guy complimentary to CeeDee Lamb. And if you're getting a guy who's going to be one-on-one a lot in this draft class at this point in the draft, this is the guy I want, one of the best separators, if not the best separator, after the top group of wide receivers in this class.
All right, so you talked about Travion Henderson earlier. Where's the next back in terms of his grade juxtaposed to the grades you have here on Williams?
Yeah, this could be a running back too. I am not putting that outside the realm of possibility. Williams I have in the top 30 on my draft board. The next one I have in the 40s, it's Dylan Sampson.
Okay.
So, Quinshon Judkins could be in the mix here. Who do you have as your next running back?
I would say for me, it would be Trevor Etienne. So we could essentially wait a little bit to get him. There's a guy that I think would pair up perfectly with one of my top backs of the previous class in Deuce Vaughn. And man, so you can kind of wait to get an Ollie Gordon, because that's like the perfect thunder and lightning combination.
Yeah. That's my opinion of this Cowboys sitting at 44 is that, you need the back. This class, you don't have to go get it. You don't have to go reach for it. You pass on one, another one comes walking through that door who's going to be a starter for you. So it's just a great class. All right, 45, Indianapolis Colts. I have them going Savone Revel, the ECU corner. Falling to this point because obviously tore his ACL early on last season, but one of the freakiest corners. He's so long, 6'8" wingspan. He's so smooth, but obviously comes with that big injury risk. But the Colts team, they don't have a lot of needs, so they can kind of go luxury and wait on his ACL after all they did at corner this offseason.
Man, can you imagine if Ravel and Juju Brents just can stay healthy, like what they potentially have at corner. And so that has been the knock with Juju Brents, who I don't know how you felt about him coming to Kansas City, but I'm pretty sure you liked his play. And Ravel is another one that has the ball skills, the length, the athleticism. If those guys can just be on the field, it's a great secondary piece together with what they did in the offseason, like you mentioned.
And Chris Ballard just loves those size freaks. The long wingspan, the ability that's why Juju Brents was taken, top of the second round, and I could see him doing the same thing here with Ravel. All right, 46, Los Angeles Rams. Stay with me here. Tyler Shuck. This is them trading down. Their quarterback of the future. Now, by year 3 or 4, he might be getting close to retirement. He is going to be 26 years old as a rookie. But if Matt Stafford, I think 2 to 3 years is probably the timeline for Matt Stafford at this point of what you're thinking, given his injury history, the back issues, and just given his injury history, like Shuck might have to get on the football field sooner rather than later. So I think they might want to prioritize that quarterback in a quarterback draft that it's not terrible in terms of talent. It's just a lot of guys who don't have necessarily upside in terms of physical traits. I think at this point, the best physical traits in this draft class, outside of Jalen Milroe, who's kind of in his own bucket of, if you really want to buy into the running game, he's where you'd go. But if you want kind of a carbon copy, if you want to just run what Matt Stafford does, Shuck's probably your best option here.
I love how you say you want a carbon copy of what Matthew Stafford does, because you probably also talk about the injuries. I mean, homeboy been hurt every year in college instead of this last one, right? So you may see a situation when Stafford retires and Shuck right along with him, and they go and do some commercials or something like that as a duo. But this is interesting because we know he's a good athlete and we know he is of age, but it's the injury history that worries me, especially if you're dealing with someone like Stafford who tends to get banged up throughout the course of a season. I worry about Shuck only having that one full season of being healthy.
I will say this about Shuck and the NFL and how they view injuries. His have all been broken bones.
Okay.
And
get your
while clavicle, I believe a leg at one point, that is not as worrisome to the NFL in terms of re-injury as soft tissue injuries. Guys that have a bunch of soft tissue injuries. So Quinn Ewers, I expect him to fall just because he's gotten hurt literally every single year he's been a starter, dating back to his senior year, or I guess junior year of high school, because he reclassified. So that's more worrisome to the NFL than what's seen as fluky broken bones. So, number 47, Arizona Cardinals back on the clock. They went Walter Nolan, round 1. I had them going back to the well. We're going Alfred Collins, and we're completely revamping this defensive line in one offseason. They did so much in free agency. They had the Baron Browning trade last year. They signed Josh Sweat, but the DT position still an issue. Dalvin Tomlinson they signed, but he's getting old. Walter Nolan they drafted, but he's a 3 technique. Here's your 2-gapping nose tackle to be that middle of the defense guy, and now you have a defensive line set for 5+ years here.
Yep, adding in Darius Robinson, who they took last year that was coming off of an injury out of Missouri. So this is the defensive line that makes things a heck of a lot easier for these outside linebackers and guys at the second level to do their job in the run game. So this is a very smart pick by you for the Cardinals.
All right, on to 48, Miami Dolphins. I have them going Jonah Savainaya, the Arizona guard. Yeah, I'm calling him a guard. Now, could he go and play left tackle and compete with Patrick Paul there? Sure, but Patrick Paul's not kicking inside the guard. That guy's way too tall. He ain't going to be playing guard anytime soon. Whereas Savainaya, just like aesthetically, that guy looks like a guard. He blocks out the sun. And I think he could be a plus pass protector, at least very early on in his NFL career. And if you're just looking at this Dolphins team, there's so many needs, but left guard looks chief amongst them right now.
Especially coming from tackle, going inside, in order to play tackle, your pass pro has to be up to par. So instantly, to your point, he becomes arguably their best pass protector inside, which helps out Tua tremendously.
All right, next up, Bengals at 49. I have them going Kevin Winston Jr., the Penn State safety. I think this is why they passed on like Malachi Starks and Nick Emmanwori in the first round, because they have this pick 49 where they thought either him or Xavier Watts or Andrew Mukuba or whoever you want in the safety class, there would be a good guy on the board for you in the second round. I think if Winston would have been healthy after the partial ACL tear week 2 this past season, he would have been a first rounder. That's how good his sophomore tape was. That's how physical he looked early on this year against West Virginia. And for the Bengals team, Geno Stone just was not working out, their free agency addition from last year. A liability in run defense. This guy's the opposite. He's one of the best run defenders in this draft class.
Worrying about the partial torn ACL from a Penn State player in Cincinnati, no less. And this is before your time because I'm alluding to Kajana Carter. But this is what I worry about with him in terms of, like, long term. We talk about Will Johnson, but this one right here would scare me off a little bit.
All right, Seattle Seahawks going Jared Wilson, the Georgia center, going back to the well. Gray Zabel round 1, Jared Wilson round 2. You had Christian Haynes round 3 a year ago. The interior offensive line that was just such a disaster, the worst in the NFL last year. Just pressure after pressure. They led the NFL in pressures allowed. Geno's so bad that Geno Smith wanted to get the heck out of there to Las Vegas. I think it takes a big turnaround with this pick.
And they signed my number 11 center last year in Jalen Sundell from North Dakota State, too. So they got a bunch of bodies there. So you wonder how good they're going to be quickly able to turn that offensive line around.
Plus, he's very athletic. New scheme there, obviously, coming over with Clint Kubiak. Going to run a lot of outside zone. All right, Denver Broncos, 51. I'm going Elijah Arroyo. You need weapons. For Bo Nix, you shoot it in the first round going cornerback. Got to give him something. Elijah Arroyo. High-end speed, high-end big playability at the tight end position.
Miami tight end to Sean Payton. Boy, you slick dog. I know what you're doing out there, Mike.
The size, reminiscent. It's a little reminiscent. Jimmy Graham. All right, Seattle Seahawks, 52. Back on the clock. I'm going to go Jacob Parrish. They have that cornerback need. Lost Trey Brown. You got 2 great ones already. This could really put you over the top out there on the edge.
Totally agree. That one right there is a slam dunk.
Oh, I love Jacob Parrish's tape. He fits right in with Devon Witherspoon in that secondary. All right, last one, 53. Bucks. They obviously had one of the biggest surprises of the first round going to Mecca Ibuka at wide receiver. I have them going the position that a lot of people thought they could go in the round 1. Donovan Ezeraku, the Boston College edge, a guy who's very gifted in terms of what he can do from a physical perspective. He's got great quicks. He's got great bends, and he's already got a lot of pass rushing moves to make an impact early on for this Bucs team.
Yeah, maybe a little bit one-dimensional, but man, that one dimension is pretty doggone good. I love this one here for the Bucs.
Yeah, they got a lot of other run defenders there to stuff it on that Bucs defensive front. He could just go rush the passer. All right, that's picks 43 through 53. We're going to get to 54 through 64, round out the second round coming up right after this. Packers on the clock at pick 54. They went Matthew Golden, to everyone's surprise. First round wide receiver. A lot of people were breaking their types. Eagles go linebacker, Packers go wide receiver, but they go back to their bread and butter in the second round. And they're going Landon Jackson, the Arkansas edge rusher. Big, long, strong, explosive. That's their MO off the edge. What do you think of this one?
I love where you got him because here's someone that gives all out effort. Very much Kyle Vanden Bosch type, right? Where he's just going to walk you back, show hustle, find ways to make ways. So I think this is part of the culmination of a good off-season process for Landon Jackson.
All right, 55, Los Angeles Chargers. They didn't go pass catcher. They went running back. Amari Hampton in the first round. Justin Herbert, he needs his pass catcher, though. He needs reliability. That's why I'm going Mason Taylor, the LSU tight end, here at pick 55. He's a guy who, may not be the dynamism of the first-round tight ends that we saw, but he has some of the best hands in this draft class and uber reliable in the pass game.
My comp for him is actually Mark Andrews because he plays a lot like Andrews played at Oklahoma. Just kind of goes about his business how you tend to expect the tight end position to go. It's not real flashy like you talked about.
Yeah.
And it's going to be fascinating to watch how the Chargers piece together this team because I like what they're building on both sides of the ball. If Herbert just can come through in the clutch in the postseason, then all will be well.
All right, 56, Buffalo Bills. I'm going JT Tuimoloau, the defensive end from Ohio State. Fits their mold. They like power rushers. He's like a souped-up A.J. Epinesa. A.J. Epinesa just doesn't quite have the juice to really be an impact pass rusher, but he sets a hard edge. Tuimoloau can do a little bit more in that defense, add just another piece. Not going to start right away because obviously you have Greg Rousseau and Joey Bosa, but you need the depth of pass rushers to win in the AFC nowadays.
No one made more money in the postseason of college football outside of myself when I told everybody to take Notre Dame over Georgia than these Ohio State Buckeye prospects because they locked in for these 3 or 4 games and they all raised and elevated their stock.
That's great. I mean, Donovan Jackson, if they didn't make the playoff, right. Donovan Jackson's still on the board here at pick 55, truthfully. I mean, he was so good down the stretch. All right, number 57, Carolina Panthers. I'm going Benjamin Morrison, the Notre Dame corner. Here's where the slide falls for him. Obviously, the tape has been great ever since his true freshman year. He's a great man corner to pair across from J.C. Horn, but he has a bad hip. That's why he falls to this point in the draft.
Bad hip, tall corner, not the ideal thing you want to hear versus these shifty wide receivers, but I like the fit because when he's out there, he plays really well, man. I know he was banged up and you talked about the hip. That concerns me a little bit, like how if someone says I have just a slight back issue. No, you don't, bro. You have a long-term back issue. So, yeah, this worries me, but I like the player. I love the prospect, and I'm comfortable with him here in the second round.
All right, number 58, Houston Texans on the clock. I have them going Jalen Noel, the Iowa State wide receiver. Obviously, with Tank Dell's injury, no clue what you're going to get from him going forward. You signed Christian Kirk this offseason. Nico Collins, obviously, your dominant number one. Jalen Noel can basically be Tank Dell in his stead. Like, if he doesn't ever come back healthy, if he's not healthy this year, Noel can be that role in that offense.
Noel reminds me so much of Steve Smith Sr., man. And I love the fact that he can impact the game right now as a punt returner or kick returner. So that's going to get him on the field. And once you get the ball in his hands, whether it's in special teams or on offense, he's going to do what he does, and that's make big plays like you talked about.
All right, number 59, Baltimore Ravens on the clock. I have him going Braden Swinson, the LSU edge rusher, one of the most productive edge rushers in the country last year. 60 pressures. I love the way he plays. Violent. Feels like a Ravens type of edge rusher.
Love it. No one's talking about him. I like him because he looked like he liked fighting, right? Give me those dudes on defense, especially wearing that Ravens black and purple. Man, that's an ideal fit for Baltimore. Very underrated edge rusher here, too.
I agree. Could not agree more. All right, number 60, Detroit Lions on the clock. They obviously had that need at left guard that I said in the first hour they could have addressed with a Josh Connerly or a Josh Simmons. I have them going to it now. Miles Frazier, the LSU guard, plugging in there on the left side. You got Christian Mahogany. You got him. You keep that dominant offensive line rolling.
This is interesting because this is where they did a great job of kind of building for the future with some of their picks. I worry a little bit about Frazier's consistency, but I can't get upset with what you have selected here because they do have to start to replenish. When you start looking at when those guys up front were drafted, you're like, oh, wow, they need to start to get younger and get guys in that system, and this is a good fit for them.
All right, on to 61, Washington Commanders here. A lot of people thought they could be in play for running back round one. Obviously, we saw a couple come off the board. They went elsewhere, building up that offensive line. But there's still a bunch of backs on the board here. I had them going Quinshon Judkins, the other Ohio State running back, to come off the board here. But you just got to go back to his Ole Miss days to really see what he can do in a full-time bell cow role. More dynamic than I think he gets credit for. And going to that Commanders offense, he's going to have a lot of space to run through.
Here's what I've always told people about mobile quarterbacks paired with any type of back any type of back, right? They're going to have their best yards per carry average. But when you pair a mobile quarterback with an explosive back or a guy that has a great first step with great burst, man, they're going to do numbers. Think Warwick Dunn with Michael Vick. Think CJ2K with Vince Young. Think Lamar Jackson with Derrick Henry. Like, this is ideally what you want. And that's what we saw last year watching Washington. Like, man, if they had an explosive back, they'd be a problem.
Yeah, 100%. I think they're picking a running back early here on day two. All right, Buffalo Bills on the clock at 62. I have them going Joshua Farmer, the Florida State defensive tackle. Not the most productive defensive tackle at the collegiate level, but he has ideal physical traits to be the run plugger on that defensive line. Obviously, they drafted Dwayne Carter last year in the third round, but he's much more of your three-tech to spell Ed Oliver. This guy can be a nose tackle. I think his best football is ahead of him, one of the strongest and most physically imposing defensive tackles in this draft class.
There was no moving him up out the gap. This is someone that definitely owns whatever gap he's in. Point of attack strength, line of scrimmage guy. Love the fit here in Buffalo.
All right, number 63. We're getting to the Super Bowl teams here at the back end of the second. Kansas City Chiefs. So maybe controversial. And everyone says it every year. When are they going to get Kelsey's replacement? I have them getting Kelsey's replacement here in Terrence Ferguson, the Oregon tight end. To me, the shake at the top of his routes, the smoothness of his hips, it's a little reminiscent of Travis Kelce. There's obviously one Travis Kelce, but he has some of the similar route running capabilities. It's like Travis Kelce now. It's like 36-year-old Travis Kelce that he can be out there.
Yeah, it's like Travis Kelce has Old Bay sauce he puts on the top of his routes, and Ferguson has A1 sauce. It's not there yet, but he's working toward that. But it's still sauce nonetheless.
He has his own special blend. On to 64. Philadelphia Eagles. I have another tight end coming off the board. I have Harold Fannin going to the Philadelphia Eagles. His head coach from last year at Bowling Green, now on the staff, I believe he's the quarterback's coach of the Philadelphia Eagles. Scott Loeffler, former Bowling Green head coach, raves about this guy. And they obviously use a bunch of 2 tight end sets. We'll see what Dallas Goedert's career is going to be going forward at 30 years old. But even if you keep Dallas Goedert, this is your ideal number 2 tight end. Because 1, he can block well in space. He's not obviously an inline blocker. He's undersized. And then 2, he gets open a lot better than a guy like Grant Calcaterra that they had there as the number 2 last season.
What's fascinating that down at the Senior Bowl, we saw him line up at fullback in the backfield. So could be another additional wrinkle to this Eagles offense that we see unlocking Fannin's game.
All right, we're going to go to a quick break here. But after that, we have the 3 players that we are watching out for where they land on day 3 coming up next. All right, I'm pushing the pile. We don't just have day 1 covered for you. We have day 2 covered for you, but also day 3, sleepers, UDFAs. We go deep here at CBS Sports. Emory, day 3 players. Obviously, day 2 is tonight, Friday night, but we're not going to get to talk to you guys before Saturday kicks off early, and we get those 3 rounds at the end. 4 rounds, excuse me. Yikes. Who are you looking for on day 3? Who's the guy who's going to come off the board in that range? And people are going to be looking back and saying, how did he last that long?
Andy Dalton 2.0, right? And we're talking about Brady Cook out of Missouri. Both are about 6'2", 215. Both are super athletic. Cook had 21 rushing touchdowns at Missouri, over 1,200 yards rushing as well. Touchdown to interception ratio is crazy. Was banged up a bit this year. But when you talk about someone that has the grit, moxie, the toughness, all of those things that you look for in a quarterback, he can start out as your QB2, but we've seen guys since COVID need their QB2 to step in and play 2 to 3 games. This is one of those players where he can step in, play really well, and then the next team will garner his services as their starter. But I think Brady Cook is a very, very much a sleeper here on day 3, including Riley Mills of Notre Dame, right? We saw him play really well, got injured. I think people forgot how good he was playing for that Notre Dame defense, and those 2 guys to me are going to be steals on day 3.
Brady Cook, I can't wait till he gets drafted and the broadcast describes him as sneaky athletic because, well, he's not sneaky athletic if you watch the tape. The guy is just athletic, man. The guy can roll. And what I love about him is that at the Shrine Bowl, I was talking to some of the scouts there, and they're like, the guys gravitate towards him. Like in a setting like that where you're only around other players for a few days, you know, he said within hours of being there, he was the guy that people were going to. That's the kind of presence you're getting in the locker room. At the quarterback position, you know, maybe if you're a running back and you're standoffish and don't have that, who cares? Like, if you can ball, you can ball. At the quarterback position, that stuff matters. Like, you need to be that guy in the locker room, and Brady Cook most certainly is. My guy at the quarterback position, though, that I'm going to go Dylan Gabriel, the Oregon quarterback. Not just the Oregon quarterback. The guy was at Oklahoma, too. The guy was at UCF, too. He's been in college football for forever. He's actually the most experienced college football quarterback of all time. He has 63 career starts at the collegiate level. Been starting since his true freshman year of high school. Is the Hawaiian all-time leader in passing yards. There is not a more experienced quarterback to ever hit the NFL. But I am bearing the lead a little bit here. He is 5'10 and a half. He is very undersized. But I just watch his tape, and I'm like, the guy can handle the NFL. He may not be elite, but he's similar to like your Brock Purdy's, your Russell Wilson's, and maybe not to that level. Wilson was much more accurate. But he's one of your day 3 quarterbacks that if all of a sudden he gets poked into, you know, someone goes down, he gets thrown into a starting role. I think that guy's going to be able to handle an NFL offense. It might not be elite, but I think he's going to be a capable starter at the NFL level.
This is what I hate about the NFL process, right? Because what you just laid out, that has to count for something, right? 60-plus games, high-level football. Obviously, he's been 5'10" his whole life and has been super productive. Find a way to get him in your organization as your QB2 and find a role for him to have success. So I'm with you. Like, I think guys like that should be able to play in the National Football League.
I love putting him behind Bryce Young, behind Kyler Murray, just like any of the sub-6 foot quarterbacks, or even like the 6-footers, where you're kind of having to adjust your offense for some height limitations.
Mm-hmm.
If he's your backup, you can do the exact same stuff with him. My other guy, another undersized, he at least hit the 6-foot threshold. So his, hinge profile actually isn't a lie. David Walker, the Central Arkansas defensive end. This guy at 6 foot, 263, his tape is utterly absurd. You watch the purple and black turf there at Central Arkansas. It's a little hard to watch, but the tape is very easy to watch because he is so dominant. Some of the most dominant tape I think I've ever seen from a defensive lineman. Level of competition was a concern, but he went to the Senior Bowl, and when he wanted to bull rush guys in the one-on-one, they went backwards. Anthony Belton, 345-pound offensive tackle from North Carolina State, looked like he was on ice skates going backwards. So I think that capability is going to translate to the NFL when you're that low to the ground, when you have that kind of leverage and that kind of explosiveness. We'll see, but it's a weird body type. Probably ends up on day 3, but he's one of my favorites in this class.
Buck Buchanan Award winner, which is the top defensive player in the FCS. Phenomenal talent.
All right, those are our day 3 players, but we're going to go even deeper in the next segment here. We're going to go to some UDFAs, some real deep sleepers that we love, coming up right after this. Welcome back to Pushing the Pile, where if you missed the first hour and a half of this show, you missed a lot of the guys that you probably know. Now is the time where we're going to talk about guys that you may never have heard of. And we're with the king of deep scouting, Emory Hunt. So, Emory, I can't wait for this. Who's your biggest sleeper UDFAs? We're going to give 2 apiece. Who's your biggest sleeper UDFAs in this draft class?
Cheating a little bit here, Mike, because I'm starting with a guy I virtually called his entire career at Morgan State. I do a lot of their color analyst work over there. And so Elijah Williams set the Morgan State sack record, which is outstanding. He broke Christopher Robinson's record. And what's fascinating about Williams, he's a defensive tackle. He's 6'2", 300 pounds, but he can line up from the 9 down to the nose. He started as an outside linebacker, kind of developed and grew into a defensive tackle. Crazy sack production. There was one game in particular against Norfolk State where on first down, it was a crucial part of the game. First down, TFL. Second down, sack. Third down, ball bat at the line of scrimmage. And so he set the tone for that defense, went down to the HBCU Legacy Bowl and killed it there. Every first rep he went up against a different offensive lineman, they ended up on their back. No lie, and I'm dead serious how dominant he was there. So he is someone that's going to find a way on a roster. And how about this? Carson Newman, Division II program, Major Williams, defensive back. And the reason why I'm bringing him up, he had a really good Hula Bowl week. He actually was supposed to go to the College Gridiron Showcase, but got the call up to the Hula Bowl. Fantastic week there. But not only is he a guy that has great ball skills, he's one of the best punt returners in the draft class. His freshman season, not freshman season, but in 2022, 32.9 yards a punt return. Not kick return, punt return. So teams got smart. They started to kick away from him, but he still found the football and still had a healthy 13 to 14 yards per punt return average. So we talk about special teams, day 3 undrafted free agents. How can you make your impact? This is how you can. And Major Williams stepped up in a major way. That's a record reference right there. E40, for you, Mike, to go do your Googles. But yeah, Major Williams is one of the fantastic punt returns in the class.
I love when you talk sleepers, Emory, because I know for a fact that they're sleepers. I know that there are names that are not on my radar that I have never heard before, but usually I know where they went to school. When you said Carson Newman, I thought that was his name. I have not heard of Carson Newman before in my life. Couldn't tell you where that is. Do you know where it is?
It's in North Carolina.
Where is it?
It's in Carolinas.
There you go. All right. I did not know that. So Elijah Williams, Major Williams, your sleepers there at DT and DB, respectively. I'm going to my two because I can't add too much more on those guys. You watch them. I have not. I'm going to go with Easton Kilty as my first one. Kansas State left tackle from a year ago. 9 pressures all season long. This guy was a North Dakota State transfer, and get this, Gray Zabel, he went 18th overall. Kilty was starting over him back in 2021 for North Dakota State. Now, he is nowhere near the athlete that Zabel is. That's why he goes the first round, and Zabel got a lot better over the course of his career. Not bashing Zabel whatsoever. But I think Kilty is a guy who can be a spot backup who could maybe kick inside to the interior at guard or center and give you some competent play as either a UDFA or a very late round pick. He's just not the athlete that usually goes high. Over 5 seconds in the 40. When you watch him on tape, his hands are so good. He moves well, even if he's not explosive at the offensive line position. My other guy, though, kind of the opposite end of the spectrum, he's explosive as can be. It's Aiden Huntington out of Tulane. Now, you might not love him because obviously Louisiana Monroe is where his previous stop was before he transferred. Had 45 pressures there before transferring to Tulane. A freaky body type, a freaky athlete. He's 6 foot, 281. So think about that for a second. 6 foot, 281. That's like Aaron Donald size. He ran a 4.6 440, had a 38-inch vertical, 10.6 broad jump, and had 30 bench press reps. The guy is tuned up as can be. Now he's a little stiff. He played off the edge, but could be an interior guy in the NFL if he had some mass. I think for a late-round guy who he will go late round if he gets drafted at all, he's an interesting prospect. Have you watched those guys, Emory? I assume you have.
Oh, absolutely. And I was about to say for Hutchinson, he was at the College Gridiron Showcase and going through the one-on-one drills. I talked to a friend of mine that was sitting next to me. I was like, he has defibrillator hands because as soon as he got him on the offensive lineman, he moved back 5 spots. I was like, goodness, bro. Like, and so to see him there, and then while we were on these shows, we saw the pro day numbers come in. It was like, oh wow, he did what on the bench? He did what in the vertical in that body? So yeah, that's Tulane has a knack for finding these squatty, 6 feet, 6'1", 260, 270 edge guys. They just have a factory down there. And they're eating good because of where they're located in proximity to Frost Top across the street, which always sees me at the HBCU Legacy Bowl. Great hamburgers over there.
All right. We didn't get to have you on for the first hour where we went through the first round. I want to hear your take on what was your favorite pick from the entire first round.
My favorite pick of the entire first round was seeing Cam Ward go to the Tennessee Titans. Because when you watch these prospects – like I'm watching all these small school guys, right? And so 2021, I saw him at Incarnate Word. I'm like, I hope people don't knock this kid for being a small school guy or just clown me for loving a small school guy just because he's a small school guy, because he was putting together some insane film at Incarnate Word. And so transferring up to Washington State, the tweets are out there. I was like, hey, they're going to be a dark horse candidate in the Pac-12 because they have a Heisman candidate in Cam Ward. And then he goes and becomes that at Miami. So him going number 1 overall just lets folks know out there, a lot of times what you're seeing, your eyes are not lying to you. If you see good, 9 times out of 10, the dude is good. And I'm glad he got the chance to go through the process and end up number 1.
Yeah, I still remember end of the season, watching his tape after, I guess, the bowl game, Iowa State, and being like, I liked him heading into the year. I loved his tools, loved what he could bring to the table, and obviously it seemed like his progression a little bit, but not actually watched all the tape on him. I went through the tape and I was just like, yeah, you draft this guy number 1 overall. Like the Tennessee Titans, and then just like hearing more about him, hearing him speak, and we actually interviewed him last night. This guy is all football, and he is like the exact type of guy you want bringing into your locker room and being a leader from day one. You don't have any worries about how he's going to, as a first-year guy, handle vets and be able to, command a huddle and those sort of things. That just comes naturally. That's like second nature to him. There is no hesitation in his game and no fear with the way he plays.
It was funny watching his games at Incarnate Word with G.J. Kinney, who was the head coach at the time, and watching that offense and how they just racked up points. And a lot of the stuff we saw him do at Miami, he was doing there. So it's not like he switched up his game. What I love about what he did at Miami, he cut down on the unnecessary turnovers or the carelessness with the football, and that's why he was able to have the more success than he had at Washington State, because I thought he could have went early last year because he was good then. You just kind of said, oh, we can calm this down. I had no qualms to take him in the first round as a Washington State Cougar, but he goes to Miami, doubles down, bets on himself, and he's a Tennessee Titan, #1 overall.
Yeah, I mean, similar trajectory, and not apples to apples, but like a Jane Daniels, where when you see a guy get better every single year, you know, when you're that physically gifted, and then every single year you've gotten better, it's like that's going to keep happening in the NFL. You know, and not a lot of guys at the NFL ready, especially at the quarterback position. It's going to take a lot of hard work, a lot of effort, a lot of hours that other positions don't have to put in. I have no doubt about Cam Ward putting in those hours and doing all the things necessary it takes to be an elite quarterback at the NFL level. So, Titans fans, you got a good one. Emory, you're a great one. Thanks so much for joining us as he does. Make sure to go tune in to our draft coverage all weekend long. Thanks so much for tuning in to Pushing the Pile. We'll be back Monday with a little recap show for you guys. Till next time, keep pushing.